Hello, everyone. Welcome to LTV Talks. Today we have Ishan Rakshit with us. Ishan is the co founder of Flow Labs, and he's on a mission to democratize tech that was previously only available to large enterprises. And he's doing that with products like Shopflo a few years ago, and now building Sortment. These are two breakout ventures backed by the likes of Tiger Global and TQ Ventures. And he's gone from building frictionless checkout experiences at Shopflo to now sort of building AI agents for marketeers at Sortment. And I feel like he brings a rare blend of sort of product depth and data obsession. When I spoke with Ishan for the first time, he mentioned that Sortment is like a AI data engineer for marketers, and I just instantly thought he was like the perfectly positioned person to unpack a topic that was like sort of top of mind for every CRM practitioner, but also marketing leaders who deal with CRM time to time. And so we decided to talk about a lot of interesting things around CRM and data and how AI is quietly reshaping marketing workflows. But before we get into that, Ishan, welcome to the show. And yeah, glad to have you here.
Hey, Karan. Nice to be here as well. And thanks a lot for the introduction.
Absolutely.
Been having some chats before, so I've been super excited for having this conversation on air as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I'd love to know, Ishan, is like just how you got from aerospace engineer to building products for marketeers. Like, how does someone make that journey? I'd love to know,
Yeah.
how you went about it.
Yeah, I know it's been a roller coaster ride for sure. In fact, for the longest time, when people asked me about what I did, I didn't want to even get in the weeds of aerospace engineering. I used to say I literally studied rocket science. But no, I did that. I was really passionate for the subject back in college. And then I actually started a venture back in college itself. And with entrepreneurs, when you do it for one time, it feels like you've tasted blood.
Mhm.
So it stuck with me. And that passion was obviously a lot stronger than continuing with studies and possibly do a PhD and whatnot. I decided to sort of learn the ropes of getting a venture off the ground. Got into multiple jobs, honestly. My first one was with a financial services firm. I was literally coding in Java and in a very large company, and enjoyed it to really understand how large enterprises work. It was a very data heavy business as well. So we were into financial indices, so huge amounts of data, decent amount of modeling, etc. We used to do there as well. Was okay for a bit, and then thought I need to be closer to business and build my business acumen as well. Switched to consulting. This was a Boston based consultancy firm called Parthenon. That was part of EY. Did that for a year and a half, got a lot of exposure working with global businesses. So a lot of stuff in Middle East, Southeast Asia, etc. And then I felt like I was probably wading too far away from the startup ecosystem. So I thought it'll be nice to sort of be closer to that. And a VC opportunity came alongside, and this was with SAF Partners, which is one of the more prominent VCs in the Indian ecosystem. It's now called Elevation. I did work with a small team, largely looking at fintech investments there, but it brought me back to where I wanted to be. And at the right time, you start feeling like it's best for both the fund and you to be on the other side. And I think I decided to quit in September 2021. Spent around 5 months researching the problems with two of my co-founders, Priya and Ankit, and started the company end of 2021.
Incredible. You make it sound like it's a 3-year journey, and
It's
you
not
are
easy.
super
Yeah,
young.
it's happened in a short period of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the learnings have been fast enough as well.
And how come marketing, right? Like because you worked with like these large enterprises, what drove, sort of pulled you towards marketing and building solutions for the marketing teams?
Yeah, so honestly, I feel like as founders, we are a little more shaped by our biases because we are so deep into action. We don't really build our 360-degree point of view on everything all the time. So it's a little bit about what you experience, who you're working closely with, and so on and so forth. So when we started the company, we were attracted towards people like us who were entrepreneurs, who were energetic. And at that point of time, it was this e-commerce D2C sort of an ecosystem which was booming post pandemic. And I was seeing like my batchmates and my people who I had a lot of tremendous respect for in the ecosystem, and whoever like I used to look up to was now thinking about starting up in e-commerce
Mhm.
brand of their own, bringing some version of a product to life that they have always wanted to use themselves. So we started working with them. But in that process, we started solving a problem which was actually very close to marketing. So we solved for a performance marketer's problem of largely, I would say, acquisition, but it was more on the CRO side of it. So if they are spending so much time and money getting people on the landing page of a website in an e-commerce brand's example, the story after that is something that very few people were working on. That how do I make the most of the stuff from there on? And what they had available was either low quality tech, which was like very small glitchy apps that they would get from platform ecosystems, or custom coded stuff from agencies and stuff. So we felt like if we build like good quality software that allows them to get the same sort of give the same sort of experience that a consumer is expecting, and literally they're getting used to good experiences from the likes of Uber, Netflix, Instamart, and whatnot. How do we sort of give that experience to these folks was a problem statement there. We did that with Shopflow. In that time, we actually were talking to marketers and marketers only. And that's the bias that started coming in more and more as we started looking at the bigger picture again. When we spoke to a lot of people in the US, even Europe as well, the problem statement that was much larger was not just the conversion part of it, but what do you do after they have become a customer?
Hmm.
And that's when we realized that a bigger resource which is unavailable was not the tech to convert people, but in fact, the data to enable LTV
Hmm.
for these people as well. And I think that was like a big shift in our thinking. And I think this was around end of 2023 or mid 2023 when we realized that even like the largest of consumer tech businesses were not empowered by data the way they should have been.
Hmm.
In fact, we were speaking to someone in a very large music entertainment business as well. They are the ones who are giving a lot of examples out there for personalized communication. They would take like 4 months, 5 months to come up with the right set of campaigns for their set of users as well. So I think those were like very eye opening insights. And we felt like, okay, if we have to really solve a big problem, I think this is lying right in front of us. And that's how the journey of Sortment also began.
Yeah, why do you think that is, right? Because, for example, as a life cycle marketer, I can totally relate to what you're saying. I feel like I've just been having problems in the 8 years. Like it's either access to, like back in 2016, it was, um, is mobile going to be big? Is it worth investing in? And then the conversation moved to after, especially COVID, people were bought into this whole retention story, right? Like before that, it was all about acquisition, and then it's personalization has been like a common theme across my career at least. And I've always been amazed at like how slow we are in terms of the progress we've made in things like personalization, things like data access, right? In 8, 10 years, I feel like there have been very few attempts to solve it, to your point. So why do you think that is, right? Like why is it a problem that was, let's say, hanging in there and not being solved?
Yeah. No, honestly, I feel like I honestly can't even say that we will also solve the problem.
Mm.
And that's the funny part, right? Because look at it in this way. The reason I'm saying this is the subjective definition of personalization has changed a lot. And the tools and the data that marketers have available with them to even like do personalization has also changed. So, for example, 10 years back, it will be a great feat if a marketer was able to use a first name in a subject line finally to personalize stuff. Probably 8 years back or 5 years back, if you're able to do a lot of segments really well, it's great personalization. Today, obviously, they're talking about something else. With AI, the question is that can a different message go to each and every single individual basis the tonality, what they would really accept, or what kind of conversation has worked in the past, and so on and so forth. So that expectation is changing. And probably 10 years from now, the expectation would have still changed, and we will still be having another podcast episode talking about why this is still an unsolved problem. At the same time, I think we have to also look at why is that expectation moving above and beyond. It's largely because technology and data has evolved. Probably 20 years ago, it was not very easy for a marketer to, in a very GUI based scenario, just send out campaigns the way they would have wanted. They would still depend on a today also a lot of legacy companies that we speak to are depending on emails and notes being sent to a backend developer who's actually coding it into their message flows to send out journey campaigns and stuff. So some companies are still there, but most companies have moved to a place where they can do what they want now, but with the data that they have in the platform they're gotten used to. So the shift that we are pushing forth is now that that scenario is also of the past. The platforms that were created 10 to 15 years ago believed in a day and age where each and every platform should have their own set of data points to be able to give a very small playground to marketers that, hey, here's your world, great UI, but here's what you are limited to. Please use it. We are saying that companies have moved on. Now, the next shift that happened, in fact, like the kind of crazy adoption we've seen on data warehouses post pandemic has been insane. Now, we are seeing like mid market companies adopt a Snowflake or a Databricks or a BigQuery to start using it for BI, but also for more as well. The question we asked of like very recently was, why is this data not in the hands of a marketer? Because it's a wealth of information on your customer. Why do you still have to depend on a data team and so on and so forth? And while we were solving this problem over end of 2023 and 2024, here comes AI, here comes reasoning, and it sort of unfolds it in a very beautiful way that, oh, okay, what we were able to do in our first cut of the product that we had released sometime in 2024 with some of our design customers, that, hey, we've given you access to unlimited data now. You have access to everything. Go crazy. They were getting overwhelmed. And it was not very easy to make sense of the wealth of information that they would have. And I think what we realized was that plus how LLMs have progressed, they were able to sort of now translate and make sense of data to be able to derive outcomes out of it. So at least this problem we have solved till now. I agree with you. And again, I reiterate, it might still be an unsolved problem with raising expectations in the future as well. And I think that's the tussle with marketing. I think some of the problems keep on changing because what you have and what you want, both are bars that keep on moving as well.
Yeah, and I can't complain, right? Like that's why I have the job I have. If problems didn't change, I wouldn't be here doing the same, or tackling newer problems. One question that I have is also like while these things are changing, right? Like almost the problems are evolving, not unsolved, but like the idea is that it's actually evolving over time. And the expectations are rising not only from users, but also from the companies who are operationalizing their data and trying to get there faster than the others.
Yes.
What sort of things are you seeing in the market right now, for example, with adoption of AI? And what I mean by that question is because whenever I speak to companies, I hear a lot of ideas floating in the air,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen this enterprise level adoption yet, right? Like at enterprise level, I do see there are companies who are trying to promote you to play around with AI, like giving out ChatGPT or any other AI tool subscriptions and things like that, and they want you to experiment. But my feeling is that it hasn't reached a stage where the companies are willing to bet on a tool and like make it a part of their tech stack, right? At the fear that something could might come along really quickly.
Yeah.
What have you seen in the last few years?
So again, we have had honestly conversations with, I would want to say, more than 200 plus companies. And I think this is one common question we keep on asking them, that where are you in the AI adoption curve? And you're right. I think there is a lot of excitement, but they have not still been able to move or productionize a lot of systems into AI as well. Most often we would come across a use case where, or a situation where the marketing team in a company feels that they are 100% at the frontier of AI, but all of their examples would be limited to it being used in creative and copy. And I feel like, again, that's a great place to be as a company if you're using AI for copy, because it does that really well and it will keep on getting better there. But at the same time, I think the friction that people face with data is probably the most bigger blocker out there when it comes to time. So if a company truly needs to move faster, sure, they can do some of these short-term optimizations around making copy sort of created faster, getting creatives done faster and stuff like that. But unanimously, everyone's telling us that the biggest problem that they face is actually getting faster response from the data teams, or getting unblocked from data analytics and stuff like that. One interesting way of asking this question, and that has come up very recently, has been, we typically ask them that, let's say you were supposed to become 2x more productive, or you had to move 2x faster as a marketing team. And typically we pose this question to leaders as well. What is that one hire that you would get that could give you the most confidence that you'll be able to become 2x? And that answer has been a data analytics person or a data engineer. And that's been a very sort of a prompt signal for us that that's what we want to do. To your question, I think again, that's one gap that we hope to fulfill so that companies start really adopting AI in the truest sense to really unblock them the way they want. I think there are other broader pieces around enterprise adoption, which are obviously, we are also in a wait and watch situation. Obviously, enterprises will be a little cautious towards AI, data privacy, and what all gets exposed and stuff like that. What we are trying to do is obviously, as a software that is trying to alleviate more of the marketers' problems here. We are trying to sort of obviously make it a lot easier by being data warehouse native, making sure that products can be self hosted whenever possible. You can use your own AI to do the same stuff as well, and so on and so forth. So, those are like obviously that conversation will always happen with respect to any product adoption, honestly. I'm sure when cloud came and you had on prem, you would worry about all those breaches and hacks as well. Well, I think it's a new set of principles and new set of checks people are starting to set up in these companies with respect to AI native products. And I think we are going to see how that story also unfolds.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. And I think it only comes with time, right? Like even
Yeah.
with the CRM tools that we have right now, the technology we have now,
Yeah.
I often work with enterprise clients who are still in the, in like 5, 7 years back in terms of the technology they have. So I imagine the same happens with AI and using that. A few thoughts there was, so first of all, like for anyone who hasn't seen Sortment, right? My impression, I'll describe what I saw, and please fill in the gaps if you think that I haven't understood it
I
completely.
actually just put out a video as well. So,
All right.
yes.
Perfect. Then I guess, guys, like go to Ishan's LinkedIn posts and check out a video where he explains it. But overall, it's like a very user friendly way to query your data, right? So it's like a Chat GPT esque UI where you basically can type in, say, segmentation that you want to build with the exact criterias or whatever you want, and then because it's built on top of your data warehouse, it can understand from the semantics like what do you mean or which data would be useful here, and make the segment for you.
Yeah.
Does that answer it?
Yeah. I think a more visual way to probably describe what you just said is that you are a marketer, and a lot of times your requirements are sort of satisfied by a data analytics team or a data engineering team, and you have to sort of reach out to them, Slack channels, Jira tickets, and whatnot. Sortment is like there is a personal AI data engineer beside you, there is a personal AI data analyst beside you, and they're watching you, understanding what you do, how you work, what are the terms you use, what is your language, what is your style, and understand what the business does. And that's what, obviously, that's a learning process for our AI as well. And match it with the data that your warehouse has and the data semantic, essentially, that context as well, so that it can answer the questions, if not better than a regular data analyst, but at least as good as you would a human data analyst could have answered that as well. I think that's what at least I'm hearing from our customers as well, that this is what it feels like. So
Hmm.
you're right. I think asking questions, getting answers to basic analytical questions, but also aiding brainstorming is something that has become an interesting use case, because sometimes you
Mhm.
don't have a purpose in mind when you're asking a real question. So you might simply just say that we have this popular schema and example of Uber because that's what everyone understands as a business. So
Mhm.
if you're a marketing manager at Uber and you want to sort of promote the Uber subscription, you would want some signals on sort of the paying capacity of a rider and so on and so forth. And perhaps you don't have a very clear understanding of what data point to even query. Let's start with that hey, I want to just figure out, if I had to bucket all my users in three categories of high paying, medium paying, low paying, what are the fields that I can even use? And that's how
Hmm.
basic your question can be when you're talking to AI. So yeah, you can start with brainstorming, you can start with designing strategy, you can start with then say that, oh, show me this piece in a pie chart or a line graph, or just chart it out, no matter what visualization style you use. And using that, I can say, oh, this bar looks interesting, I want to create an audience out of it. For these people who are part of this bar that you just showed, what were their campaign open rates when the campaign tag was retention? Stuff like this. Now you can ask
Awesome.
more complex questions, more pointed questions, and so stuff like that. So I think that's the direction we are getting into. What's beautiful is that all of this is nothing but data in your warehouse. The next part is now when I want you to implement something. This is where Sortment integrates with all ESPs out there. So a Braze, a Retrieval, or a Salesforce, or an Adobe, or a Klaviyo, whatever. And it is now say that, oh, you just created an audience. You want to sync this audience into your ESP immediately. Single click, done. You want to keep on sending it every Sunday, 7 p.m. Sure. Same with attributes. You want to calculate the percentage of canceled rides in the last 10 days for every user, and you want to sort of send it to an attribute because you're using that as a selection criteria for your journey. You can also do that. So I think that's where it's actually getting used and put into action very quickly as well. So that's broadly what Sortment essentially does today.
And would it be correct? So if we do like a pre-world and post-world, right? Like in the pre-world, what you just said is like I would have to typically go to my data analyst or put in a brief saying, hey, by the way, like I want to build an RFM segmentation out of my users. What would be the good sort of benchmarks to do that? And of course, there are some automations or some tools that allow for that, but then not many brands adopt those tools. So in the post world, I'd be able to do that with with an interface and get very reliable results, which also has been like a big problem area, right? Like a lot of times you have hallucinating effects. Is it something that is common, by the way? Like, did you already solve for it, or is it going to improve over time, right? Like, because I see it all the time with like AI tools that it starts getting muddier and muddier, and the last thing you'd want to do is have wrong data. I'm sure you know that already,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No,
curious to hear.
honestly, I'll be honest, on and off. Of the difference in the old world and the new world is that the world was a lot more deterministic. I gave this as an input. This is the output I need to get. Here, the way we have designed, because ultimately the frameworks are agentic itself, every step of the workflow is probabilistic. So even if it's a very straightforward question, it is likely that you ask it like n number of times, and one time it will falter and say that, hey, you know what, either give a garbage output or not. So that's 100% is there. I think hallucination is not that big of a problem with the new models so much, especially after reasoning came out. And which is why I think a lot of stuff that we do was not even possible in January. So even our roadmap is changing so fast with the new releases. But you touched upon a very interesting point, and I think what something that we have realized is in the old world and new world, the difference is not just the way I used to do it, but and this has come with our customers very recent when they have come back and said that, hey, you know what? I signed up for this because I thought I'll be able to do this faster. But the bigger change, which is tough to quantify, is that when you're actually working with a human data analyst as well, you would probably ask 2 out of the 5 questions you had in mind. Because I don't probably want to look stupid, or probably the person does not have time to really brainstorm with you. Or, sure, I'll need to ask this person a question, but I'll have to give them business context around this question, and which will take a lot more time and stuff like that. So I think those things are the ones which are going to create a big sort of alpha in your output as well, where you're now able to sort of dump all your load on AI, throw everything at it, and see what you get back. So I think that's a big delta as well. So old world was a little more conservative in the way things would even flow between teams. Here you are supposed to just be more powerful, more creative, more inspired, focus on the strategy part of it, and throw this load to the AI data engineer to come back with those answers and make it happen.
Yeah. And I think that's the overall theme with everything AI, right? It's just that it's going to be your employee, your team member, your hire, and you almost need to manage AI tools, or you need to know which models to use, which tools to use, and how to get the best outcome
Yeah, Karan, it's interesting.
for
In
it.
fact,
Like,
even yesterday I was listening to a podcast where someone mentioned that the biggest change that AI has done is make their people better managers, because to make AI more functional, they have started sort of documenting everything, getting an onboarding material and Docker for AI as well. I think that's a very interesting thing, that it's disciplining humans, which was not there some time ago. But I also attended the Snowflake Summit recently. I think and again, I think this is something that is there in AI folklore anyway, that people are saying, and Sam Altman was there as a keynote speaker. So there was a lot of talk about exactly what you said, that AI started as an intern, is already sort of in more and more functions, let's say in software development as well as customer support, has proven its mettle to prove that it's a great junior employee. It will soon become a great senior employee as well. And hopefully will start sort of becoming teams and not just the employee. So I think we are also betting on that. We are betting heavily on that. But our focus is 100% to make sure that um, the marketer is at the center of it, because it should sort of make you more powerful, it should sort of give you more control to do the things that you ultimately want and intend to, than take it away from you. And that's one thing that we are strongly believing today.
And by the way, to the point, right? Like it's also in the few years, like when we moved from web first world to mobile first world, even just that, which was big enough a change, but seems so small in comparison. Even that took a lot of, org changes, the way you worked with your team, how teams were even set up, how metrics were defined. And I feel like for the next maybe 5 years, I feel like this is it's a theme that gives me existential crisis, because I'm like, man, you are going to have,
Yeah.
you will need to be good enough that you understand how these models work. And if, to your point, like if the chat GPT becomes, a senior employee versus being an intern right now, you are going to know how to tackle a senior employee, where to direct them, right? So strategy becomes much more important than much more important part of your role versus it is now. What other, because you've spoken to so many marketing leaders and also practitioners, right? Like what are you seeing that scares you, that excites you on the life that is going to be in the next few years for them? Are we going to run out of jobs? I am sure that's not going to happen, but like what, yeah, your thoughts, what's going to happen?
Yeah, no, honestly, I think that's something that all of us keep thinking about. It's all over LinkedIn and whatnot. But I feel like most generation defining technological changes, the one thing that is very clear is the people who have benefited are the ones who ride with it than the ones that don't. So no matter what the outcome is, and it's tough to predict, I also am not in the business of predictions as well. But I feel like people who will actually adopt fast will win definitely for sure. And again, whenever these shifts happen, the early adopters have a massive advantage. So at least that's something that I'm seeing become more and more real in the companies that I'm talking to already. As far as workforce is concerned, I don't know. I feel like people will need to reimagine sort of workplace organization a little bit here and there as well. The hope is that most of these functions, see, I think if there is a lot of load, like if a company in any department has a backlog, it's a great place to be benefited with AI. That, hey, you are now picking only 5 things out of 100, you'll probably pick 50. And the hope is that if that backlog made sense, it will lead to the growth of the company. So I don't think the companies which are adopting AI bullishly are not thinking about what is happening and will I lose people and whatnot. It's actually thinking, can I multiply faster? So I think that's the big difference that I'm seeing in AI forward companies and AI backward companies. But yeah, I think obviously for some companies it might mean something else. They might actually try to optimize costs and stuff like that. But it's a very company specific decision.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that I was even thinking when I spoke to you first was like, how do you guys work with companies to shift? Because it's not only get my tool,
Yeah.
it's like change your mindset, and that's hard to do, I imagine. One thing I wrote down here was also like, just with AI, I feel like the build versus buy conversation that used to happen like long back, with at least with CRM tools and any marketing platforms. I feel that ship has sailed, right? Like a lot of people have, at least whoever I speak to, I see like a lot of people just want to buy now because there's no time to build, and there's compliance, there's security, there's like so much stuff to handle, and things are changing so quickly. It becomes a buy decision almost instantaneously. And the second thing, please tell me if that's correct. And the second thing is like, once they decide to buy, what are the usual blockers you come across, right? Like, why does someone come and say, by the way, you've got a great product, but we are just not there yet? Like, does that happen? Or, what's the challenge that you're facing?
No, 100%. I think, again, we are also discovering this. Most of these conversations are fresh in real time. You're right. To your first point, I think the build versus buy equation, as that answer has come out in the market anyways. Most companies are focusing on making their core product better versus figuring out, should I become an AI builder in my own company or not? 100%. I think that's the case. In our case, see, our proposition is actually very straightforward. And I think there are two big proponents for this. One is existence of data warehouses have made it a lot easy for things to latch on top of the data warehouses as well. They have actually become platforms. A Snowflake is a platform now. Databricks is a platform now. So it's almost like installing an app on top of your data warehouse. So with the people that we have gone live with, we've done it over like 2 30-minute calls, and that's fine. I think you're right. I think the bigger objection comes because it's a multi-party decision. You have to sort of convince the data team as a marketer that, hey, this is something that will help me a lot. And hopefully, there is more stuff that you would want to do and not sort of get bogged down by my requests. And that's sort of an equation that most marketing teams have with data teams as well. So that sort of a dialogue takes time. Getting everyone on the same table, making sure legal goes through and whatnot, that's a dialogue that takes time as well. But what's interesting is, see, I think in our case, most of our customers are mid to large companies. So they have gone through this process before. So there is a template that they follow because we have gone through this process multiple times now. We have also gotten used to this template. So in most of our conversations, we alleviate a lot of these concerns in the first, second call itself. That hey, these are the typical objections we've heard in the past. You would have thought it takes 3 months to implement. It's 2 calls. You would have thought data moves to a different party, so it's insecure. It's not, and so on and so forth. So that has helped a lot. The only thing remains is whether you are in the budget cycle or not, and the typical enterprise sales objections they will probably evaluate when we are renewing something, and so on and so forth. Those are completely fine. I think the marketers continue to be excited with that, and the kind of response we hear from our customers slash people who have demoed the platform from our product updates is overwhelming. So I think that's a good signal that people will actually convert when the right time comes for them as well.
Yeah, 100%. And your demo is impressive because it is so easy to use. Like when someone sent me your website, it was super easy to understand.
Yeah.
What it's about. So I think you're doing a great job there as well. I think it's super intuitive.
Yeah, no, thanks, Karan. I think one big learning has been that AI needs to be touched and felt to be believed. So we
Right.
just sort of used AI to create dummy data on Uber and said, let's imagine everyone knows Uber and let them play around with it.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, another part of that, right? Like, let's say, is one is the sort of blockers from someone you are selling to or a company level conversation. The other is a blocker from just adoption of practitioners who, let's say, who get this tool
Yeah.
to play around with.
Yeah.
I'm sure there have been cases where you have had teams, who've adopted and sort of started running with this and have created impact.
Yeah.
And might have been teams who wouldn't, or who couldn't do that for some reasons, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe a few of them. But what, according to you, has been different between those two teams, right? Like, is it a mentality obstacle? Is it any expertise, skills? What are sort of the main things that come to your mind when, when a team doesn't adopt something like your.
Yeah. I think people underestimate the value of this phrase, which is thrown around a lot in our industry of being marketer friendly. Because not all software is marketer friendly, honestly. So it's not just the fact that you are set in a right way or talking in the right language, but the UX matters a lot. So that obviously we are also in a journey and we have focused obsessively on that to make the tool marketer friendly because we are also leading them to more complexity by virtue of exposing them to data. So initially there were questions, and I think of late the kind of transformations that the team has brought through in the UI UX of the product has been incredible. The difference between someone who has become a power user and has derived a lot of value versus the ones who have not is actually the fact that whether they're using it to execute something they had in mind already, or are they using this tool to start thinking more. For example, there is a company that uses us because they know that, oh, this is a weekly email campaign I have to send. For this is a query I'll run, send it to my ESP, send out that campaign. And sure, I'm sure the value is in that process to be done faster and they're using it. But the ones who are actually like wowed by it and are actually making more ROI and money out of this are the ones who are now thinking, I didn't know I had support information in my data warehouse. What can I do to increase this part of this journey in my ESP, which Sortment can help plug that data in better, faster, so on and so forth. So those are the companies who are sort of opening their mind a lot more, talking to AI, brainstorming a little bit, analyzing that data to really do this. In fact, I'll give you one example. I think one example that we saw very recently was someone was running an, let's say, an A/B test. This is also an example I've started quoting a lot because it blew my mind as well. And that A/B test came out to be inconclusive. And those are like a lot of these A/B tests are inconclusive, so you can't really do a lot about.
Most of them.
And unless you ask the right question, you don't get to realize that what do you make out of this A/B test? Did it really lead to an insight in the first place? So a lot of times you might just say that, oh, this went to waste. Let me now set up a new test, if at all. What AI is able to do a lot better and say that, hey, you know what? People who received variant A and clicked, which was the conversion event, let's say, the ones who were successful or who converted seemed like had a stronger correlation with young age. You start thinking as a marketer that, oh, why don't you plot it? And then you realize, oh, under 25 users, A was 10% better than B. Probably it's not so conclusive after all. And I think those are the things where you need to sort of bounce off this interaction with AI. And I think the true form of this is conversational, and which is what we have focused on, which is what AI has given us as well. So those are the kind of companies who are really finding these delightful opportunities of exploitation in their current setup, which is something also we are getting inspired from.
That is amazing. And that example resonates so much because just last week, I was working with a company where we A B tested something, and it was a large segment, like, millions of users in each variant, and the results were inconclusive. And
Yeah.
in this case, I was the sounding board, and I thought, okay, actually, this was just a culmination of so many segments. We split it by one variable, and we found out, okay, for that variable, it does make a big difference. And it took us maybe a week and someone's time to dig into this data, and like, so the value is right there, right? Like, I think that by having someone to do that with who doesn't get irritated by a request, I think that's a big boon.
Yeah.
100%. One other thing I wanted to just ask you is, so what does the future tech stack look like, right? Like in the last few years, there has been so many. I saw one article that you wrote, which was like there are 14,000 martech tools, and this is why we built another one. And I was like, why did you build this, right? And how does that fit into now a marketeer's tech stack, and what does that look like according to you? Maybe you can, I'm sure this varies for different industries and different sizes of client, but how do you look at it, right? Like, what does a company need now to be that effective with that data that they are collecting now already,
No, and I think you would know this better. I think companies' tech stacks are very varied. We wanted to sort of every time we have tried to create sort of a market map of our customers on how do I bucket them, we have been baffled. Like we can't figure out like an enterprise company is using something that an SMB company is also using. Is someone's data gravity is in the warehouse, someone's actually storing all the data with, let's say, a mixed panel. It's crazy. Like what's two things that are very prominent in how I've seen these companies sort of trend towards. I think, and I keep talking about it with my team as well. I think the biggest piece is which we are seeing with AI as well. Because data costs are getting lower, everyone wants to unify data for sure.
you
And which means it will be an eventual reality that most of companies, probably the smallest companies as well, if it becomes that easy to implement a data warehouse, would want a data warehouse to house all their important customer analytics data and stuff like that. And I think that becomes a truth, at least in my head. And that should become then a core part of your marketing stack. And for companies where it is not today, sure, probably it's not our ICP today as well. But I feel like that is an eventuality I truly believe in. Now, if that happens, then the obvious question is that do I really need so many different silos of data in the first place? Because as a marketer, why do I need to worry about whether this data is here with a 1 hour delay, here but only for 5% of the people, and so on and so forth? I should really just talk to my customer data in a single one on one conversation. So I think there are companies who are realizing this as well. So the future really in our minds is where the data gravity is centralized in a data warehouse or a data lake, anything of that sort. And every product out there which is solving for their specific part of the puzzle are talking directly to it. So either this is your ESP or something you do for analytics and so on and so forth. You should not have like a different data silo in the first place. Because the benefit here is that AI can't really
right?
work on silos that effectively. You have to get context together, you have to get data together. Hopefully, you have your data team also contributing to this source of truth in the first place. So I think that's where at least our vision of this ideal martech stack is. Applications on top of the data warehouses or source of truth will keep on being changed as and when we see more innovations out there. We are perfectly fitting in between the data warehouse and your current ESP, where we are saying that perhaps you don't need to depend on your ESP for intelligence. So your customer data can be
Right.
on top of your data warehouse through Sortment, which is marketer friendly. And this is the guy which is helping you work with your ESP as the final tool where you're designing those campaigns and creating those beautiful journeys so that you interact with the end customer.
I totally see the vision, and like I think this is filling me with excitement as I hear more, because I think like this is such an interesting landscape. It's changing so quickly. I think what you just said makes so much sense for a marketer as well, and for also for companies, right? Like for marketing leaders who might have heard these blockers for many years now, where the access to data and spontaneous data and correct data has been like a major blocker.
Yeah.
And now it's contextual as well, so now it's not only just access to data, but it's like access to data plus someone trying to make sense of it with you. So that's a big advantage.
No, that's a big one, honestly. Even the last bit when you said someone to make sense as well, I think there is this feeling as marketers that our data is perhaps not there yet. Every marketer is very insecure about the quality of data that I've spoken to as well. And I feel like that's the place where they feel like they need to rely on the data team a lot more because they are the ones who know the nooks and crannies of the data warehouse and where the right data is. Perhaps the data is in three places, but this one was the latest updated. I think with reasoning models, what's been the most beautiful part of our innovation is that tribal knowledge that exists in the data team that is acquired can actually now sit with your AI data engineer because now they will know that, hey, last time I sent Karan this audience, but instead of using the price column, I used the amount column of this table. And he said that, hey, this is wrong. And then we finally corrected it with the price column. Next time he asks me to look at dollar values, I will look at the price column instead, and so on and so forth. I think that's the knowledge that an analyst at work is also getting, where you can start relying on them for more and more accurate stuff over time. I think that's where at least our focus is today to deliver value like a real data analyst as well.
And this is great. And I've been so impressed with the tool, and now also like, just the clarity of thought that has come across. I think like it answers a lot of questions I had before the interview. I was telling you, like I researched and I had like a lot of these questions that we haven't spoken about before. So I think this was honestly like super enlightening for me as well.
No, I think
I'd love to.
all new for us as well. So happy to. It was great chatting with you about it as well.
Yeah, same.
No, I think one big piece that I have learned very recently is that what AI has done for all of us is has sort of create this disturbance in the software ecosystem where all of us are like scrambling for new tools and those added optimizations that come. And I feel like what the stack was before AI and what the stack will be after AI, I won't say has settled, but at least there is less turbulence, will be starkly different. And it has given a level playing field for not just startups like us, but now we are actually absolutely like going against, let's say, fairly large companies as well, because everyone's now doing it for the first time. So I feel like all of us are in this very beautiful day and age where things are getting redefined. So I can't contain my excitement as well. Well, it's the conversations like these which make it feel worth it. So thanks a lot for having this with me as well.
Of course, and I totally agree. By the way, I think like this is a point you made earlier as well, that the barrier to entry is just so low that what SMBs couldn't imagine 10 years ago, especially in India. I was back there a few months ago, and when I was talking to people who were like starting out something of their own, just the level at which they start in terms of the data, the tech, their pages, whatever you name it,
Yeah.
it was just so intense. I was like, man, this was probably like the best website access that, or like a experience that maybe 10 years ago was a world class, and now is just like the beginner
Yeah.
level. So yeah, there's definitely that. And I feel like also what you said earlier, right? Like it's not the teams who just like learn to play with AI. It's also like how do you make these new use cases possible with AI, right? It's not, I think it's still replacement that's going on, right? In the large masses where I'm using AI to write content which I would otherwise get from a copywriter.
100%.
But how do I use AI for these new use cases which I just are the problems that I didn't even have before. I think like that's the fun
Yeah, I
part.
think once people will be done with solving their existing problems, they will start opening up imagination more. That, oh, okay, now I've done this, I've replaced this with my new AI workflow. Now what else can I do? That's when the
Yeah,
real unlock will truly happen.
yeah, 100%. Thanks, Ishan, for being here. And yeah, and I would encourage everyone who's listening to also check out Sortment and then also reach out to Ishan for any questions on LinkedIn. He posts some wonderful things there. And if he hasn't posted anything, just go through his feed and you'll find like a lot of value, I think, as I did today.
Perfect.
So again, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Karan.